There are moments when time seems to hold its breath. The air feels heavy, the silence thickens, and an inexplicable feeling crosses the spirit, as if something invisible were about to reveal itself. It is on this threshold that our journey begins. Chico Xavier said that the universe speaks before it acts, and that every transformation in the world begins first as a whisper in the collective soul. Perhaps we are hearing this whisper now, even without understanding it. It echoes in the shadows of the news, in the anxieties we cannot name, in the dreams we seem not to remember, but which insist on leaving marks at dawn. It is not the world that is changing, Chico said. It is the vibration of humanity that is being called to respond. In his words, time is not a line that moves forward. It is a mirror that reflects back to humanity what it has sown. Therefore, 2026 is not just a year on the calendar. It is a symbol, a point of convergence between what we were and what we are about to become. Chico spoke of this as one who saw destiny with the eyes of the soul. He knew that beneath the apparent chaos, a new spiritual order was rising, silent, profound, inevitable. When man loses himself from the light, he said, the light itself seeks him, and that search begins now. For decades, during nights of prayer and tears, Chico received messages from higher spheres warning of a decisive cycle in Earth's history. The words did not come as threats, but as invitations. Prophecy, he explained, is not a sentence. It is an opportunity for choice. And perhaps that is the essence of all that is to come, understanding that every human thought participates in the destiny of the planet. He believed that the universe is alive, and that the vibration of each soul is a note that resonates in the great cosmic body. When many are out of tune, the whole becomes unbalanced. When a single soul rediscovers the tone of love, the universal concert is rebalanced. Therefore, he taught that the transformation of the world would not come through divine decrees, but through individual awakenings. If the heart rises, the earth also rises. That was his conviction. But Chico also clearly saw that the awakening would not be gentle. There are pains that do not punish, they only purify. There are silences that do not isolate, they only prepare. And there are changes that do not destroy, they only reveal what has always been hidden beneath the veil of appearance. Such is the process of the earth. Such is the process of the soul. Imagine the planet as an immense spiritual organism, pulsating with the sum of human vibrations. Chico said that every act of kindness lights a light in this body, and every gesture of selfishness creates a shadow. We are the cells of the world, he stated simply. And like a body seeking balance, the planet reacts to excesses, adjusts its currents, changes its tides. The prophecies did not speak of punishment but of healing, not of the end, but of a new beginning, and every rebirth requires pain. In the last years of his life, Chico confided to close friends that he perceived an energetic acceleration on Earth. He spoke of an invisible movement, a convergence of forces that was pressing the human spirit to evolve faster. Time is getting shorter, he would say, not to frighten but to awaken. And when someone asked him what we should do, he would smile and reply, "Love faster." These three words, simple and almost childlike, perhaps contain the greatest secret of the new era. Love as the speed of consciousness. But for Chico, love was not a fleeting emotion. It was a divine science. He said that to love is to recognize in every being a spark of the same light that dwells within us, and that when we forget this, we become strangers within creation itself. Today, looking at the world, wars, polarizations, hopelessness, it is possible to understand what he meant. The forgetting of spiritual unity is the root of all suffering. He already warned, when man forgets that the other is part of him, the world is divided. And where there is division, there is pain. It is in this context that the prophecies for 2026 gain meaning. They do not speak of destruction, but of revelation. What is coming to light is a mirror of what we have hidden. The earth only returns to us what we vibrate upon it. Chico used to say that evil has no power to create, only to reveal how much we need to evolve. Thus, each crisis that arises is a collective lesson. Each external disorder is an internal reflection, and each human tear is also a drop from the spiritual sea that tries to cleanse itself. Some ask, why now? Why this time? Perhaps because free will has reached its most acute point. Humanity has received all the tools of light, knowledge, technology, communication, but continues to wound itself with its own creation. Chico said that Progress without fraternity is a blade without purpose. It cuts, but does not build. And that is precisely why we are being called. The earth can no longer bear the vibrational backwardness of humanity. It cries out, and the heavens answer. The call is collective, but the awakening is individual. He saw the planet as a soul in labor. Every pain, every catastrophe, every disorder is the contraction of a new birth. The earth is giving birth to a new humanity, he affirmed, and the birth of light demands the abandonment of the ego. This is the essential message Chico would leave if he were among us in flesh and blood. But he never left. His presence, though invisible, permeates those who seek to understand the hidden meaning of events. He continues to guide, inspire, and calm. And in some way we cannot explain, he still whispers, "Do not fear the future. It is merely the reflection of the faith you plant today." Those who knew him personally say that there was a peace in his gaze that seemed to contain the entire universe. It was as if eternity watched through his eyes. He didn't speak of prophecies to impress, but to console. With each prediction, he offered a way out. Prayer, humility, service to good. The world doesn't need heroes. It needs awakened hearts. And perhaps that is the key to 2026, understanding that the planet's destiny depends on the sum of small human lights. Perhaps we are living through the twilight of an era, not its end. Chico said that when the spiritual night seems darkest, it is because dawn has already begun to break on another plane. What will come will not be the apocalypse, but the dawn of a broader consciousness. A humanity that will finally learn to listen before speaking, to serve before demanding, to love before judging. And when that day arrives, we will understand that every tear, every fear, and every loss was part of a larger process, the awakening of the collective soul. For now, we are still on the threshold, but the threshold is always the beginning of a bridge. Time accelerates, the invisible draws near, and the heart feels what the mind does not yet understand. Chico Xavier continues to guide, not by voice but by vibration. His presence is not on altars but in the consciousness that awakens when someone chooses the light amidst the confusion. Faith, he said, is the language that the universe understands without translation. And perhaps that is the calling of now, to learn again how to speak with the universe, not with words, but with vibrations, not with fear, but with purpose. The future will not be written in the stars, it will be written within us. And as long as there is a single heart willing to understand, the sky will continue to send us signs. Because Chico's voice does not belong to the past. It is the very murmur of eternity trying to remind us that love is the true prophecy. And this is just the beginning. There are times when humanity seems to walk on an invisible line, as if each step could decide the course of an entire era. Chico Xavier said that the collective destiny of Earth is like a scale that oscillates between two poles, fear and love. Silently, he warned us that the time in which we live is a period of great choice, not a choice made at the ballot box, in wars, or on borders, but within each conscience. He affirmed that the universe is moved by subtle laws, and that the most powerful of these is vibration. Everything we feel, think, or desire contributes to the weight of this invisible scale that defines the future of the planet. And this revelation, although it seems distant, touches the daily lives of all of us, in simple gestures, in everyday conversations, in decisions that seem small but echo in the spiritual field of the world. Chico once recounted that good and evil don't fight outside of us. They vie for space within each soul. When we choose to react with anger, even in the face of injustice, we strengthen the shadow. When we choose to understand, even amidst pain, the light expands. Each thought is a seed, he said, and the world is the garden we cultivate with our intentions. This idea seemed simple, but those who heard it that night never forgot it, because in some way each person present perceived that they were being called to participate in something greater than their own life. All of humanity, Chico explained, is facing a spiritual turning point, and the forces that decide the future are not in the hands of a powerful few, but in the silent vibration of millions of anonymous hearts. Imagine the planet as an immense energy field, where each human emotion is a spark that fuels it. When compassion prevails, this field becomes luminous and harmonious, but when fear dominates, it becomes dense, heavy, almost suffocating. Chico said that fear is the shadow of absent faith. And that is why so many people today feel tired, anxious, and directionless. They absorb the collective weight without understanding that this weight is also made up of their own anxieties. What you feel for the world feels for you, he said. And perhaps this is one of the most forgotten keys to spiritual teaching, that the exterior and the interior are mirrors. In his letters and lectures, Chico recalled simple experiences to illustrate this truth. He spoke of a woman who used to pray silently every morning, even when illness prevented her from getting out of bed. She prayed not for herself, but for all those who suffered most. "I feel that the world becomes a little lighter after prayer," she would say. Chico confirmed, "It really does, my daughter, because every sincere prayer is a healing vibration launched into the invisible fabric of the earth. It is as if the human soul were a small sun that, when lit, helps to dissipate the mists of collective despair." But at the same time, he warned that the opposite is also true. Every explosion of hatred, every cruel word, every silent judgment also sickens the world. Spiritual responsibility is therefore a real force, and perhaps more urgent than any political decision. However, there was something even deeper in his words. Chico spoke of an invisible conflict between the two currents of the world, one ascending, made of fraternity and serenity, the other descending, fueled by fear and division. According to him, these vibrational flows are now clashing, and each person is a point where the two forces meet. He said that, at this very moment, millions of souls are being called upon to decide which current to uphold, and this decision, though silent, has the power to change the course of history. He described the planet as a battlefield where the weapons are invisible, and the army is composed of thoughts. "Love is the only force that doesn't need to win to transform," he stated sweetly, and this phrase resonated as a reminder that the expected revolution is not external, but vibrational. For Chico, the trials of the world are pedagogical reflections, not punishments. When a society plunges into violence, he saw it as a mirror of its own spiritual incomprehension. When a nation divides, it is because its citizens have forgotten the principle of divine unity. And when an individual loses faith, the universe responds with challenges that invite them to rediscover it. "Life is a school," he said, "but some students only learn when the blackboard shakes." This simple metaphor summarizes the spirit of the times in which we live. The crises spreading across the planet are collective lessons. Each one asks, "In which vibration do you want to remain?" Many of those who accompanied him witnessed episodes in which Chico seemed to see beyond the present. Once, during a simple gathering, he looked at the horizon and said, "There will be days when the earth will seem tired of us, and on those days men will have to choose. Either they are reborn into love, or they collapse under the weight of their own shadow." His words left the room in silence. No one dared ask what he saw, but everyone felt a shiver of recognition, because deep down, they knew that this choice was already happening. It happens every time someone decides to hate or understand, condemn or help, judge or forgive. There is no greater tribunal than the human heart. Today, perhaps we can understand what Chico meant. We live in an era of information overload and a scarcity of wisdom, connected by screens, but isolated in our souls. He foresaw this and yet maintained hope. He said that even in the densest networks, light could spread. A single sincere vibration was enough to create a chain of peace. The energy of kindness is contagious, he taught, and if it's true that fear also spreads, it's equally true that love has a greater reach because it vibrates at a higher frequency. Every act of kindness is a silent prayer that crosses borders and alters destinies. Perhaps the salvation of the world will not come from great heroes, but from ordinary people who decide, in their daily lives, to act consciously. Chico used to observe the details of life as if reading spiritual signs. He saw beauty in the smallest gestures, the baker who wakes up early and blesses the bread before handing it over, the teacher who smiles even when exhausted, the stranger who helps another cross the street. These souls sustain the world, he would say, because according to him, it is in small gestures that love becomes concrete. The universe is not moved by speeches, but vibrates before the purity of a simple action. "Goodness makes no noise," he would repeat, "but the silence of goodness has more power than the cry of violence." These seemingly simple lessons are the true map for the spiritual journey that 2026 represents. But not everyone will understand this immediately. Chico also foresaw that many would resist the light, clinging to old beliefs of separation. The ego fights for survival when it senses the end, he explained, and this resistance manifests itself in personal and collective crises, in losses, in collapses that seem like punishments, but are merely a reflection of the soul resisting the new. He said that humanity, upon crossing the vibrational threshold, would feel a kind of spiritual vertigo, the discomfort of leaving behind the old identity. The fear of the unknown would be the final test before awakening. It takes courage to be born again, he said serenely. When Chico spoke of the choice between love and fear, he didn't do so as one who announces a war, but as one who extends a bridge. Love doesn't demand perfection, he said. It demands presence, and perhaps that is the real choice, to be present in the now with awareness, instead of getting lost in the projections of fear. The future for him was not predestined. It was a living organism that responded to human vibrations. Each awakened soul tipped the scales. Each gesture of compassion moved the axis of the world a millimeter toward the light. And so, slowly, humanity would transform, not by divine imposition, but by spiritual contagion. Ultimately, Chico's great revelation wasn't about the end of times, but about the beginning of responsibility. He saw the planet's destiny not as a mystery to be feared, but as a continuous creation, woven by the sum of human choices. God doesn't punish, he said. God educates. And time, that immense mirror, merely reflects back to humanity the image of what it has become. If the image is dark, it's because the light is still adjusting. If there is pain, it's because there is birth. And if there is fear, it's because the soul is beginning to remember who it truly is. Perhaps that's why when looking to the future, Chico never expressed despair. He saw the storm, but he also saw the arc of light behind it. He knew that every collective fall is the prelude to a new ascension. The world is being prepared to choose what it wants to vibrate, and each of us is a particle of that destiny. Love and fear are not distant forces. They are the two voices within us, calling at the same time. The decision will not come from the heavens. It will be born from the heart. And while that heart beats in harmony with the light, the universe will wait patiently for the moment when humanity finally understands what Chico Xavier tried to say throughout his life, that good, even silent, is always the strongest path, and time is only beginning to reveal that. Chico Xavier used to say that the earth is not a dead body floating in space, but a living being that breathes, feels, and reacts to what humanity emits. He called it our silent mother, a planetary consciousness that welcomes, instructs, and corrects. Many heard this as a poetic metaphor, but Chico insisted it was not a figure of speech. The planet is a spirit in evolution, and we are its conscious cells. When the Earth's spiritual body becomes ill, it is because human thoughts have become toxic, and when it reacts with winds, tremors, and droughts, it is not revenge, it is defense, a movement of purification. Nature speaks, he said, but few still know how to listen to it. In one of his old letters, Chico described an impressive vision. He saw currents of energy emanating from cities, forming dense clouds in the sky, mixed with small sparks of light rising from sincere prayers. Regions of hatred vibrated like burnt fields, those of love like ethereal gardens. He understood that the spiritual climate precedes the physical climate. When human vibrations become unbalanced, the planet tries to reorganize the flow of energy. Unseasonal rains, fires, earthquakes, all are material reflections of a collective vibrational imbalance. The earth feels before man perceives, he once wrote, and if it is moving with more force, it is because the cry of human consciousness has become too loud to be ignored. Chico believed that nature is the first and last temple of God. Therefore, he said that destroying a forest is like tearing a page from the living Bible of creation. Each tree, each river, each stone carries a fragment of cosmic wisdom, an ancient memory that speaks to the soul. He recommended that, when walking outdoors, human beings pray not with words, but with silence. Listen to the ground, he would say. The earth teaches when man is silent. How many times have you walked without hearing anything but your own noise? How many times have you looked at the sky without feeling the presence that dwells within it? In his moments of inspiration, Chico would say that the planet has points of spiritual breathing, places where the veil between worlds is thinner. These points, according to him, are sustained by souls in pure vibration, simple people who keep alive the connection with the light. He told of a woman in Minas Gerais who, every day, watered a small garden and prayed for lost souls. One day, he saw her in a spiritual vision. From her yard rose a column of light that pierced the clouds and joined other columns scattered around the world. These souls are like the lungs of the earth, he said. Without them, the planet would suffocate. The force of good rarely makes a sound, but it sustains the invisible balance of all that exists. For years, Chico warned that nature would begin to act more directly to restore humanity's spiritual balance. He spoke of winds that would not ask permission, of seas that would demand respect, of fields that would refuse to bloom where man had forgotten gratitude. His words were not a threat but a warning. The planet does not punish, he said. It educates. And sometimes the lesson comes in the form of loss. How many tragedies are, in fact, a call to return to the essential? How many times must the ground tremble for the heart to awaken? Chico would tell simple stories that seemed like parables. One of them told of a fisherman who, after losing everything in a flood, sat down by the river and, instead of cursing the water, began to pray. Without realizing it, he transformed suffering into a spiritual bridge. Whoever gives thanks in the midst of pain, Chico would say, mends the invisible thread between earth and heaven. This was the essence of his teaching. The energy of the world is renewed when someone chooses to give thanks instead of complaining. And this gratitude, even silent, alters the course of things. In his deepest prayers, Chico said he felt the earth as a beating heart. He saw lights rising from the forests, songs echoing from the sea, vibrations coming from the animals. He believed that everything, absolutely everything, is consciousness in varying degrees. When a human being kills out of vanity, he doesn't just eliminate a life form, he wounds the vibrational field that sustains the planet. But when he offers love, even to a wounded animal, he repairs part of the broken web. We are gardeners of the invisible, he affirmed, and the garden responds according to the care we give it. Have you been taking care of your piece of the world? He also told the story of a young woman from the interior of Syrah, who, after losing her father, began planting a tree every week in his honor. She expected nothing. She only wanted to give thanks for life. Years later, that forgotten plot of land became a grove, and people began to visit it in search of peace. Local doctors noticed that patients who walked there recovered more quickly. When the story reached Chico's ears, he smiled. Love transforms even the air we breathe. It was his way of remembering that the earth is sensitive to human gestures. Every seed planted with pure intention has the power to heal. In a lecture, he surprised the audience by stating that nature also possesses a form of moral memory. The waters know who loves them, he said, and the mountains remember who hurt them. People laughed, thinking it was a metaphor, but Chico maintained a serene gaze. He explained that matter is only the visible side of the spirit, and that each particle contains the vibrational memory of everything it touches. If humanity vibrates with gratitude, the planet will respond with abundance. But if it vibrates with indifference, it will reap silence. Is it a coincidence that the soil becomes arid where compassion has been forgotten? Chico said that, in the future, natural disasters would not be seen as punishments, but as cosmic therapies. The earth is undergoing treatment, and humankind is both patient and doctor. Caring for the world is caring for oneself, he repeated. He believed that one day people would understand that prayer is a form of ecological participation, because prayer changes the planet's magnetic field. All elevated energy transforms into vibrational medicine. In his diary, there is a short phrase that summarizes this idea. Love is the photosynthesis of the soul. What meaning would this phrase have for you today? He saw, with spiritual clarity, that the purification of the earth would intensify until 2026. But, contrary to what many imagine, it would not be a time of fear, but rather of revelation. He described a luminous wave traversing the planet, awakening consciousness, dissolving old structures, and forcing each soul to look at what it had avoided seeing. The geological, climatic, and social transformations would be reflections of this same internal movement. When the interior changes, the exterior obeys, he explained. And just as a body with a fever eliminates toxins, the earth is burning away the excess of human ignorance. One night, Chico confided to a friend that the planet would emit increasingly clear signals. He said there would be places where the sky would change color, where inexplicable sounds would be heard, where ordinary people would have prophetic dreams. The earth will speak in new languages, he warned, and whoever listens with their heart will understand that it never wanted to destroy us, only to awaken us. What if this language has already begun? What if the signs are not isolated phenomena, but an ancient conversation that we are finally ready to understand? For him, reconciliation between man and earth would be the first step in spiritual rebirth. There would be no true progress while the soil bled and the air became heavy. He who does not respect the home loses the home, he said. He believed that humanity is about to rediscover the sacred in everyday life, in food, in breathing, in the cycle of the seasons. Every gesture of ecological awareness is in fact a mystical act. Planting a tree is praying, saving water is forgiving, caring for an animal is blessing. The spirituality of the new era will not come from temples, but from direct communion with life. Chico saw in this communion the beginning of a new civilization, an era in which science and spirit would not be opposites but complementary. Technology would help humanity to hear the heart of the world again. Satellites would observe forests, not only as data, but as sacred organisms. Children would learn that respect for nature is a form of respect for themselves. The earth doesn't want our guilt, he said. It wants our cooperation. And perhaps that is the greatest challenge, to remember that the planet does not belong to us. We belong to it. At the end of each conversation on the subject, Chico always returned to the same phrase. When man reconciles with the earth, heaven draws near. He believed that, by restoring harmony with the planet, humanity would open the portal to a new level of consciousness, where the physical and spiritual worlds would become a single field of experience. It would not be an escape from Earth, but its transfiguration. Perhaps then we will understand that the winds, the waters, and the stones have always been messengers trying to remind us of what we have forgotten, that we are made of the same light that pulsates in the heart of the planet. What if, deep down, every catastrophe is simply Earth's way of teaching us to love? Chico Xavier used to say that the soul of humanity renews itself in cycles, and that at each turn of time, new spirits descend to Earth to rekindle what the world has forgotten. He called them the messengers of dawn, ancient souls in young bodies, bearers of a sensitivity that does not adjust to the harshness of this world. The presence of these children, he said, is not a biological accident, but a divine strategy. They come in silent waves without trumpets or signs, and bring with them a wisdom that seems beyond their age. They are the crystal children, translucent souls who look at the world with wonder and compassion, as if they remembered something that adults have erased from memory. Chico observed that these children reject hatred naturally, do not understand violence, and are moved by pain that is not their own. He said that this is the first sign of a new spiritual race, not a mutation of the body, but of the heart. He once told about a boy in Uberaba, who upon seeing his father arguing with the neighbor, began to cry and said, "Father, don't you see that the man is sick with sadness?" The father fell silent, and so did the neighbor. Chico simply smiled and said, "The new soul has spoken." It was these simple gestures that he saw as signs of the new era. These children carry within themselves the memory of universal love, and their mission is to remind the world that the spirit is older than hatred. He claimed that starting in 2020, the reincarnation of these souls would intensify, and that many of them would be born into deliberately dysfunctional families to teach forgiveness and affection where love seemed impossible. They are courageous souls, he said, because they choose to be born where light is most needed. According to Chico, elevated spirits do not flee from the shadows. They plunge into them to transform them. And that is why so many of these children face early diagnoses. Autism, extreme sensitivity, spiritual anxiety. They are not sick, he said. They are souls who feel the world in a way that the world does not yet know how to understand. How many of these souls live beside us today, misunderstood, trying to teach us to see again? In his conversations with Emmanuel, his spiritual guide, Chico reported that the new generation would possess such refined emotional intelligence that it would confound adults. They will see the invisible and feel the unspeakable, he said. There are already recorded cases that seem to confirm this prediction. Children describing places they have never been, recognizing deceased people, speaking of past lives with verified details. A 4-year-old girl in Pernambuco pointed to an old photograph and told her mother, "He waited for me on the bridge, but I didn't want to cross yet." The family had never spoken about the grandfather's death. When Chico heard the account, he simply replied, "The veil is getting thinner." But these manifestations don't always come in the form of mystical revelations. Sometimes they appear in everyday gestures, so discreet that they go unnoticed. Chico told of a street boy who, upon receiving a loaf of bread, shared it with another who had none. He didn't think, he remembered, he said. The ancient soul acts through memory of good. For him, these small, spontaneous actions are echoes of previous spiritual civilizations, where fraternity was instinct. We are seeing the return of purity as an evolutionary force, he explained. And isn't it curious that, in times of so much noise, it is the voices of children that bring the highest truth? Chico believed that these children would be the foundation of a post-materialistic civilization, a generation that would not seek wealth, but purpose. That would use technology not to escape reality, but to heal. They will see the machine as an extension of the soul, he said, and we are already beginning to see signs of this. Young people creating apps to connect blood donors, students developing digital inclusion tools, groups spontaneously organizing to clean rivers and beaches. These are modern expressions of the same ancient energy, service to the common good. But are we prepared to learn from them? According to Chico, adult humanity fears purity because it reveals how far we have strayed from our origins. That's why many try to mold these children according to outdated standards, forcing them to fit into systems that no longer vibrate at the same frequency. He warned that the education of the future would not be based on imposition, but on listening. Whoever educates a new spirit must have the humility to unlearn, he said. The schools of the new era will need to teach silence, compassion, and self-control before teaching calculation. Knowledge without soul is a desert, and the desert does not sustain flowers. How many schools today are ready to train gardeners of worlds? Chico said there is something profoundly divine in the way these children perceive pain. They don't reject it. They embrace it as part of the soul's learning. He saw this as a sign of extreme spiritual maturity. He told of a blind girl who said she saw colors that grown-ups have erased. When asked what she meant, she replied, "I see what people feel, and that has color." Chico believed that the spirit of this girl was that of an artist from higher spheres, reincarnated to teach that true vision is not that of the eyes, but that of the heart. How many of these silent lessons do we fail to perceive because we don't know how to listen to what is simple? These new souls, Chico said, didn't come to reform institutions, but to alter frequencies. They work in the invisible realm, raising the vibrational standard of humanity. Their presence changes environments, inspires reconciliation, and dissolves conflicts. They are spirits who pray in silence and transform without preaching, he explained. And if we pay attention, we will realize that many adults begin to change simply by interacting with them. There are parents who rediscover faith by observing the serenity of their children. There are teachers who become more patient upon seeing the sparkle in the eyes of a student who seems to understand everything without words. Isn't that, after all, the true revolution? Chico warned, however, that these souls would also face great challenges. Because they vibrate at a higher frequency, they are sensitive to the world's pain. They feel anguish where there is imbalance, suffer in heavy environments, and become ill amidst hatred. They are living antennas, he said. They need love to remain in balance. He recommended that adults learn to protect these spirits with harmonious environments, kind words, and sincere gestures. Aggressiveness and sarcasm, he said, are like invisible poisons. Whoever wounds a pure soul, he warned, wounds their own future. Some of these children demonstrate inexplicable gifts, spontaneous healings, extrasensory perceptions, precocious talents in music and art. Chico said that these talents are not for display, but for service. Art will be the new form of prayer, he prophesied. And when you hear a child play an instrument or sing with genuine emotion, it's hard not to feel that something greater is being expressed there. They are memories of other existences, vibrations that come from afar, fragments of a universal harmony that tries to manifest itself again on Earth. There was one case that Chico never forgot. A 12-year-old girl, the daughter of separated parents, dreamed of a city of light where the walls were made of sound. Every time someone smiled, a note shone on the walls. Upon waking, she drew what she saw and explained, The city sings when people love each other. Chico listened to the story and replied with tears in his eyes. She described our home, but with the language of the future. For him, these children carry within them the memory of the spiritual worlds and are teaching Earth what heaven already knows, that love is a frequency, not a promise. When Chico spoke of these souls, his voice became softer, as if he felt them nearby. He said that many of them were already among us, growing in silence, observing human chaos with patience. They are the healers of tomorrow, the builders of a time when kindness will be natural. They didn't come to conquer the world, he said. They came to love it until it remembers itself. And perhaps that's already happening, silently. While the world is in turmoil, these souls are sowing the seeds of a new cycle. They don't preach or impose. They simply radiate. And one day when we look back, we will realize that the planet changed not through grand revolutions, but through small hearts that chose to remain pure amidst the storm. The future has already begun, and it has the serene gaze of a child who remembers what it is to love. Chico Xavier said that human progress would be tested the moment technology reached the soul. He believed that the same fire that once served to cook food could, in another time, set the world ablaze depending on the consciousness of whoever used it. And this is exactly where we are now. For the first time, humanity holds in its hands a power that transcends borders, capable of creating or destroying with a touch. Chico saw technology as an extension of the human spirit, not as an enemy of faith. What man creates outside of himself is only a reflection of what already exists within, he said. And perhaps that is why the world, increasingly connected, also seems increasingly lonely. Technology has only revealed on a global scale what has always been hidden in the depths of each being, the distance between knowing and feeling. During his final years, Chico stated that the time would come when the invisible waves of devices would serve the light, not fear. That electrical energy, a symbol of material progress, would also become a channel for spiritual healing. And in fact, what was once just a prediction began to manifest. Today, prayers cross continents in seconds, meditation sessions gather thousands of people at the same moment, and words of comfort are shared by unknown voices. Chico said that even the telephone wire can become a thread of prayer, and the internet would one day be the instrument of universal good. He believed that the true digital revolution would be spiritual, and that when humanity understood the vibrational power of communication, each message sent would become a seed of destiny. But he also warned of the risk. When the human mind disconnects from higher consciousness, technology becomes a mirror of shadows. The same tools that unite also separate, those that heal also wound, and those that inform also confuse. The danger is not in the machine, it is in the man who operates it without love, he said. Chico prophesied that the great challenge of this century would be learning to use power without losing one's soul. All light without wisdom is fire that consumes, he warned. And those who observe the world today realize how right he was. The excess of information has turned into noise, constant contact into loneliness, the search for connection into fear of silence. It's as if humanity had built antennas to the sky, but forgotten to tune into the heart. Chico once told the story of Dona Dalva, a widow who, after losing her husband, began reading spiritual messages to people living alone. She recorded her own voice on a tape recorder and sent them to strangers by mail. Decades later, a young man found those old tapes and digitized them. Today, the recordings circulate on the internet, touching hearts in many countries. The voice of love never dies, Chico used to say. This simple account shows what he already foresaw, that charity would cross the invisible threads of technology. It's not about rejecting progress, but about re-enchanting the use of energy. He said that the future would see doctors healing from a distance with vibration, masters teaching without physical presence, and hearts united in prayer without borders. The light will always find a way to spread, he repeated. But as the light grows, the shadow moves. Chico explained that the forces opposed to spiritual progress would also try to use technology to spread fear, discord, and misinformation. It is the invisible war, he said, where the weapons are words, and the battlefield is the human mind. He asserted that humanity would have to choose between using networks to uplift or to corrupt. A repeated lie vibrates like poison in the air, he warned. But the truth spoken with love is an antidote that cannot be extinguished. This spiritual tension, according to him, would reach its peak between 2025 and 2026, when the entire planet would seem divided by invisible lines. These would not be political borders, but vibrational borders between fear and hope, between ego and compassion. And it is in this scenario that another of Chico's revelations gains strength, that nations, like individuals, also possess a soul. He said that entire countries go through cycles of expiation and learning, and that some in this new era would face severe trials. Economic, political, and moral crises would spread like spiritual fevers. Nations are being purified, he explained, so that the gold of conscience may be separated from the dross of pride. This collective purification would manifest itself in intense events, financial collapses, scandals, disasters, not as punishments, but as awakening shocks. When asked if this meant destruction, Chico calmly replied, "Do not fear the upheaval, fear indifference. The upheaval awakens, indifference lulls the soul to sleep." He used to employ a powerful metaphor, the murky river. He said that just as turbulent water needs to flow to cleanse itself, societies also need to go through periods of turbulence to regain clarity. The mud is not the end of the river, he affirmed. It is merely the movement that precedes purity. And when humanity reaches that point, when pain transforms into understanding, the world will see different leaders emerge, not driven by vanity, but by empathy. More humane governments, laws inspired by spiritual justice, economies that will serve the common good. But until then, Chico warned, the journey will require courage, faith, and inner vigilance. In one of his most striking visions, he described the image of entire cities enveloped in a bluish light, while others plunged into dense fog. He explained that this did not represent physical destruction, but the vibrational separation between those who chose love and those who still feed on fear. The earth is changing frequency, he said, and not everyone will be able to withstand the same vibration. This was not a threat, but a realization that the human soul only remains where it can breathe. Just as fish need clean water, the spirit needs a harmonious environment. Nations that persist in hatred will feel the weight of their own vibration. Those that choose forgiveness will flourish, even amidst chaos. There was a moment when Chico, moved, declared that we would see the collapse of many systems before the emergence of a new spiritual order. The towers of pride will crumble, and from the rubble temples of consciousness will be born. He said that this renewal would not be achieved through wars, but through saturation. Suffering would reach a point where humanity would understand that there is no way out outside of love. Despair is the birth of faith, he affirmed. And perhaps we are already witnessing this birth, still shrouded in cries and confusion, but inevitable. As the new millennium approached, Chico spoke more frequently about the invisible influence of superior spirits on the destinies of Earth. He recounted that scientists, artists, and leaders would be inspired by luminous entities, even if they didn't realize it. They will whisper ideas of peace into prepared hearts and confusion into those who resist, he said. This intervention would not be visible, but profound. Scientific advancement itself would be guided towards collective healing, not just individual healing. Material progress, without spiritual light, would be sterile, but, guided by love, it would become a bridge between worlds. Science without God is light without warmth, he repeated. Today, that prediction sounds less far-fetched. Artificial intelligence, instant communication, medical breakthroughs, everything faces the same question Chico Xavier posed decades ago. What will we do with so much power? He said that the world will only find peace when it learns to use technology as a means of compassion. The thread that carries the word can also carry prayer, he taught. And when humanity realizes that each message sent carries a living energy, it will understand that the true responsibility lies not in inventing, but in vibrating correctly. Perhaps that's why, when speaking about the future, Chico showed no fear. He knew that turbulence is simply life's way of reorganizing imbalance. God writes with lightning when man refuses to read with the light of day, he used to say. Today, the world seems full of storms, but perhaps these are just the last lines of an old book being turned. And amidst this scenario of tension and uncertainty, his message remains clear. Each person, each nation, and each technology is a mirror of what we are inside. The earth is purifying itself because the human soul is undergoing treatment. And when the night seems longest, it will be a sign that dawn is about to break. Chico Xavier affirmed that chaos is merely the prelude to harmony. No darkness can withstand those who choose to be light, he said. And perhaps this is where we are now, the moment when the whole world needs to decide what it wants to send out into the universe. Because, as Chico taught, the future is not built by the power of machines, but by the intention of hearts. And the time for decision has already begun. Chico Xavier used to say that the end of a cycle is never a final point, but a deep breath of the universe before a new beginning. And perhaps we are now in that exact moment, an instant in which all of humanity holds its breath between fear and hope, about to cross an invisible portal. He affirmed that the great movements of life never arrive with fanfare. They arrive in silence, when the heart is ready. And it is in this silence that the new time begins. The future, Chico said, will not be imposed from the outside, but awakened from within. Each of us is an instrument in the symphony that the earth is composing, and what we vibrate defines the melody of the world. During his most profound visions, Chico described 2026 as the year in which luminous forces would descend to Earth in silent waves, influencing minds, inspiring decisions, and rekindling the sense of the sacred amidst chaos. These spirits would not bring spectacular miracles, but discreet revelations. They would manifest as a sudden idea of kindness, an unexpected forgiveness, a tear of compassion at the moment when hatred seemed to win. Heaven works through simple gestures, he said, and that is what the new era will demand. Small but consistent actions, born from an awakened heart. Chico believed that each person has an invisible mission, a field of spiritual action that extends wherever they go. The smile given to a stranger, the silence in the face of provocation, the prayer said before sleeping, everything transforms into vibration. Everything adds to the balance of the planet. There is no useless gesture when love is the intention, he affirmed. The new era will not require saints, but people willing to act consciously. He said that the spirituality of the future will not be in temples, but in everyday acts, in respecting the time of others, in patience with mistakes, in gentleness in the face of impatience. Many asked Chico how to help humanity amidst so much suffering. He would calmly reply, "Start by taking care of your own vibration, because the world," he explained, "is like a vast field of mirrors, and what each soul reflects interferes with the light of the whole. It's no use talking about peace if the heart vibrates with judgment. It's no use asking the world for love if the thoughts are still clinging to resentment." He taught that true charity is vibrational. It begins within and spreads. When someone decides to cultivate serenity, even amidst the noise, that vibration reaches hundreds of people without them knowing. And that's how the invisible works, discreetly, but with precision. But Chico also said that this collective awakening would not be gentle. The forces of transformation act like tides, and every rising tide first drags away what was trapped in the sand. Therefore, times of crisis are also times of cleansing. He said that we shouldn't be frightened by the apparent chaos, because the light is only reorganizing what the shadow has deformed. Life never destroys, it only reorganizes for the good, he reminded us. When everything seems unstable, it's a sign that reality is revealing itself. It is at this moment that faith needs to stop being just words and become practice. True faith is silent action, not expectation. And what action does the new era demand? Chico answered simply and directly, to love intelligently and to serve humbly. To love intelligently means not confusing love with submission, but understanding that even limits imposed with respect are a form of love. To serve humbly is to offer the best of oneself without expecting anything in return. The soul that serves in silence never walks alone, he said. He believed that true spiritual advancement will not be measured by beliefs, but by actions. The world needs less speeches and more examples. In many of his messages, Chico spoke about the importance of maintaining focus on the light even when the world seems dark. He compared the soul to a lamp that shines amidst the storm. If a single flame remains lit, he said, no night is complete. It is this small flame that the spiritual plane expects from each of us, because the great transformations of the earth will not come from stages, but from silent homes, from anonymous hearts that continue to pray, love, and believe. When humanity reaches a sufficient number of luminous hearts, the global frequency will change, and suffering will begin to lose its power. The revolution will be vibrational, and each of us is part of it. Chico saw the future as a bridge uniting two worlds, the material and the spiritual, and said that we are already crossing that bridge. Perceptions increase, dreams become clearer, coincidences repeat themselves. The universe speaks, but it speaks in the language of attention. That is why he insisted, learn to listen to the invisible. The new phase of Earth will require less haste and more presence. He believed that haste is a form of escape, while presence is an act of courage. To be present is to accept what is, and to transform what can be transformed without harming one's own balance. As 2026 approaches, we feel the weight and promise of this new cycle. There is fear, yes, but there is also a new strength being born, like a seed breaking through its shell. Chico said that fear is the womb of faith, because it is when we feel most fragile that we seek the light with the most sincerity. The world needs this sincerity now, not imposed beliefs, but spiritual authenticity. Humanity will only find balance when each individual recognizes that heaven begins within themselves. The change that so many await will not descend in the form of a miracle. It will be born from the sum of thousands of small awakenings. In his last conversations, Chico left an image that summarizes all his teachings. When the storm passes and the sun shines again, don't look for the heroes. Look for those who kept the candle lit. This is the true mission of every soul in this time, to be the point of light that sustains balance when everything seems to collapse. It is not necessary to be perfect, nor to know all the answers. It is enough to be sincere in intention and constant in kindness. The universe takes care of the rest. Now, the path lies before us. The new era will not be written by prophets, but by ordinary people who choose to vibrate in peace, act with compassion, and serve with joy. Chico Xavier's presence remains alive to remind us of this, that love is the most practical energy that exists. It requires no preparation, only decision. May each gesture, each word, each daily choice become a prayer in motion. The future of the earth depends on how each of us responds to this inner calling. If this message touched your heart, allow it to continue its journey. Leave a comment, even anonymously, as a way of showing gratitude and connecting. Like this video so that more people can find this light. And subscribe to the channel to walk with us in this current of peace, faith, and awareness. May each new week be another step towards the love that Chico Xavier believed to be the true destiny of humanity. Because the time for transformation is not tomorrow, it's now.